Welcome to CEO with Sophie. Just a quick note from me. If you like what you hear, go ahead and join the CEO Club right now by hitting that subscribe button. Not only will you never miss an episode, but you'll also be helping us out more than you know. Thank you and enjoy. Today, we're thrilled to have Laureen Knudsen on the show, a globally recognized transformation executive and chief transformation officer with over 30 years of experience guiding Fortune 1000 companies through AI-powered innovation, operating model redesign, and sustainability-driven strategy. In this conversation, Laureen shares her insights on personal and professional transformation, the evolving role of Chief Transformation Officer, and the impact of AI on careers. We dive into negotiation, life choices, mental health, and creating positivity in a negative world, as well as her perspective on future-proofing your career and defining success on your own terms. Get ready for actionable insights, thought-provoking reflections, and powerful advice to help you take charge of your career and your life. Here's my conversation with Laureen Knudsen. Laureen, welcome to the podcast today. It is so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. It's wonderful to be here. I'm really excited to be talking to you today.
Good. No, I was excited as well. I know when we spoke a few weeks ago, there were so many things that really actually made me think, which is, I'm not going to say a rarity because I do need to think more often, but yeah, when I spoke to you, I was like, let's have a conversation because hopefully it's going to help other people to just think about things slightly different,
I
which is
hope so.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dive in. As always, love to find out a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Okay. So I have a long, varied career. I started in software before I was even out of college. I ended up starting new departments in software development as they were formed, things like tech pubs and QA and product management. As those things started to be developed, I was one of the people that was in companies that got chosen to help form that organization and really figure out how to do it. So I ended up having that type of skill, turn that into a process focus for like product development life cycles, software development life cycles, and for running product and technology organizations. Excuse me. Then over the next 10 years, it expanded into the entire organization of doing transformations, but people weren't really calling them that or paying for that. I was often hired to just help a company solve something big that they were running into.
Yeah.
I led transformations at 4 different companies. And then for the last few years, I was a divisional CTO, transformation officer for Broadcom. I worked internally, and I also traveled around the globe and met with customers and helped them see the art of the possible and how to transform their organizations. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for those that don't necessarily know what a chief transformation officer is, because I never knew about what a chief transformation officer does or does or did, or should I say, until I got into the world of recruitment. So are you able to give us just a little bit of an overview on what that role is?
Absolutely. So it's different for almost every organization, but it's looking at the big initiatives that a company wants to do to change some part of their organization. So, for example, it often started off in engineering with agile transformations, was where that initially started. And so, a lot of development parts of the organization, product management was also impacted by that. And then it expanded out because as the development teams got faster, the rest of the company couldn't keep up. They were used to those big bang major releases, and it really it became a company-wide thing because you had to know how to train your support people on a continuing basis and have your salespeople sell small things instead of those big bang upcoming releases. And your implementation people and everybody, even marketing, had to know how to market in a different way in order to sell the small incremental changes over the large big bangs. So it was ended up transformation. Now it includes everything from there's HR people that are in transformation, changing cultures of organizations and how the people are managed. There's also transformation now. AI is a huge one that's being brought into the transformation realm. So it's also some people only see it as something as simplistic as putting in a new tool, which I don't consider it that. It's often you've got to come up with the people, process, technology, and culture of the organization and bring that all along to make real changes in how that company operates.
Yeah. That's a good synopsis. I think a lot of roles in company, I suppose, the change management side of things. Everything's changing.
Yes.
Everyone's job is to, I suppose, implement something, or even on the sales side, you're
Yeah.
consistently doing something new, and you have to learn how to do change management if you want to bring in new processes and things like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't know of anybody that's not having their job changed today, especially with AI coming in. And it's just, as AI keeps being developed faster and faster and faster. I mean, just wait till AI can start developing AI, right? It's just kind of, we're in a crazy cycle of innovation.
Yeah,
And it's all going to impact everybody's job. I mean, almost. There's a lot of, the one thing that we're finding and that studies are showing is that the more we automate within business, the more people crave human connection.
yeah.
So there's opportunities going forward as well that I think don't really exist today. But
Hmm.
yeah, for transformation, it's all of that, anything having to do with change within an organization.
Yeah. So a pretty big and important role. So something that stuck with me from our last conversation, you said, don't worry about transforming the company, transform yourself. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah. So after years of focusing on the corporate transformation side and really helping companies change, there's a huge need right now for each individual to focus on what are you going to do, right? We're
Mm,
all hearing about how fast the world is changing, and it's changing faster than we can all, each of us, keep up with, right? There's just too much going on for people to, even if you're researching full time, be able to really keep up with everything. And so we know AI will also reduce the number of jobs needed. So what can you do for yourself that, if you want to stay working in corporate America, how can you rework yourself and transform yourself to be really valuable in that new environment? And also, if you don't want to do that anymore, what else can you do? So it's really looking at your own personal transformation and seeing what you need to do in this world that's developing, that all of us are participating in right now.
yeah. And what would and now I'm gonna put you on the spot actually. What would you do, say 10 years ago? How would you evaluate yourself, or what do you think you would do now with AI coming in if it was, say, 10 years ago within your career?
Well, it was interesting. 10 years ago, we were automating things, but it was often just called automation, right? It
Yep.
was automating engineering parts. It was automating all the delivery of products out into a
Mhm.
cloud. 10 years ago, the cloud was really kind of new. And so companies were moving from on premises delivery to cloud delivery. And so it's looking at what's going on and how your company is being impacted by that, and really seeing how you can help that personally with the role that you have.
Okay. Mhm.
Almost every company right now is looking into their 2026 initiatives and doing planning for 2026. If you start to look at what your company is coming up with for the top initiatives for next year, and then seeing how you as a person within within your current organization can help the company meet the initiatives that they have going, even within your own little space,
Yeah.
that's something that's going to make you a lot more valuable and have you be kept around.
And I think that's it. I think that's what people are worried about nowadays. And the news is
Mhm.
fantastic for, making, I say, a big deal out of it, but oh, everyone's going to
Yeah.
lose their jobs by 2030 or something crazy. But yeah, you've got to think about the value that you can add, especially with obviously AI, but looking within your organization, what are the gaps? What can't AI do that I'm doing?
100%. What humanity can you bring into this?
Mm,
Because AI can't do everything, and
yeah.
especially today, I mean, we're still struggling with a lot of fundamental things that it can do well. Recent studies are showing that more senior people are actually using AI better because they can see when it's hallucinating or when it hasn't
Mm,
created good code or good whatever their job is, right? And they can fix it pretty quickly, the parts
yeah.
that need to be fixed. Whereas more junior people don't have that real world experience yet. And then they're trying to use AI to do it all for them. And they tend to leave in all of those
Yeah.
bad parts that AI does. So I still think there's a need to really bring your knowledge and to be able to have that knowledge. And one of the things that I'm seeing today I mean, more and more you can even see this online where people they don't have their own opinions anymore, right? I mean,
Mm,
there's things that they're planning, even fun things like where do I go on vacation? And they'll ask all their friends. Right?
yeah,
It's like, well, where do you want to go? Do you want to go? I went to the Arctic on vacation. No one would have recommended that for me. It was my favorite vacation ever, right? So, really, what do you want out of your vacations? Do you like
yeah,
sun? Do you like cold? Do you like snow? Right? Do you want to go? Where do you want to do? What do you want to see? Even start thinking of your daily life and quit looking at what everybody else is doing and really start seeing what you can do for yourself and what makes you happy. And what you can then, bringing that into your job and into your role of
mhm,
what can you do within your own organization to make your job more of something you want to be doing,
yeah,
make your job more valuable to the organization. Whatever your goal is, you can accomplish that. You just have to really start thinking about how to approach it and teaching yourself to approach it differently if you're approaching it, if you're just taking
yeah,
everyone else's opinions into consideration.
yeah, yeah. You basically take your own initiative.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And
yeah,
and think for yourself,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's a lot of really I'm always surprised at some of the questions people ask in forums and things online and in groups
mm,
because people just aren't even for small things, they're not thinking for themselves anymore. Really figure
yeah.
out what you like, right? That's part of the enjoyment of life is knowing what you want to experience.
Yeah, it's so easy nowadays, though, and I see it firsthand. I work with, say, a lot of juniors or fresh grads, and they go on ChatGPT for absolutely everything, and they've got all the kind of new versions. Like for the most basic
That's
thing,
right.
they'll ask, and you see it on LinkedIn as well. Everyone does LinkedIn posts that are literally copy and pasted from ChatGPT, and I think that's as bad as it is the way that the world's going, unless someone's told otherwise. Like actually use your brain a little bit on these things.
Yeah, and it's really going to set you apart though in
Mhm.
these worlds where people aren't going to think for themselves at all anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the answers that come out of even Chat GPT, if you give it more input, right? Like I can say, go write an article about the top things that executives are
Mhm.
worried about for 2026. And it's going to spit out an article. Or I
Mhm.
can say, I've done a little research on this, and these are the things that I'm interested in or that I can help solve. And so the article should include these topics
Yeah.
instead. And here's my opinion about each of these.
Yeah.
It's a whole different article that it's written, and it's much more of your voice. If you can't expound on the articles that you're posting or the posts that you're posting on, especially on LinkedIn, right? And you're going for a new job or you've got to go for a new job, and people ask you, hey, I saw you wrote this. What was your experience that led up to this? And all you
Yeah.
say is, oh, I typed in a prompt. I mean, I have no experience in that at all. Right? That's really gonna make it hard for you to advance your career
Yeah.
or to, keep a career in the next 25 years.
I agree because at the end of the day, you're gonna be asked questions on it. So, yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta know your stuff,
right,
basically.
right.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we can go on a tangent around this, but I do want to ask more around, and we're sticking within that kind of personal evolution side of things. So obviously, you work a lot with executives and C suites on transformations. That's your role. What you have
Yeah.
done. What did you see about the importance of personal evolution over organizational change?
Well, corporate transformations only succeed if the people inside them change. So,
Mm,
you can implement new tools, but if nobody's going to change what data they're entering or how they're doing it, it really isn't very beneficial. If the executives don't change, I mean, that can really hamper forward progress of an organization. I've
yeah.
been part of transformations where we were 9, 10 months into it, and we were creating dashboards of real data so you could tell real time information on what was going on in the organization. And some executive demanded a, a progress report or I've just lost the name of it. What your status report.
Yeah.
Right. And so what that did is it just dropped everybody back into old ways of working.
Mm.
And so if they had to write up a status report, they weren't going to be entering the data. So then your dashboard started to fail. And then the whole transformation collapsed in on itself simply because some high-end executive refused to look at a dashboard and learn the new charts and what they needed to be looking at instead of asking for what they'd always asked for.
Yeah.
So the higher you are in an organization, the more negative impact you can have to the changes that are trying to be made. So leaders, it's 100% on them. I mean, I still know a lot of C levels that think their job's not going to get replaced by AI. Well, I hate to say it, but if all you're doing is asking for a status report and I can provide dashboards that really, and then dashboards that now can be read by AI that can then spit out what's happening in your company.
Mm.
I don't need an executive to review that anymore and to figure out what to do next, right?
Yeah.
AI is going to do it all for me. So really, it's understanding the new ways of working that are coming up into play for everybody, right? This is going to be everybody, and and really understanding how you can use those to make your organization as a whole more of a leader in their industry.
Yeah. So I'm curious because working in transformation and getting these leaders to think differently and change, that must
Yeah.
have been a tall order and very tough. So I'm interested to hear what shifts in mindset or skills helped you hold your own and speak for yourself in these sort of high pressured environments.
Um, it's not always easy, right?
Mm.
And during my career, I was often the only female in the room because I was, in technology during the time when there weren't a lot of high-ranking females. Even just recently, in my last role, I at times was the only female in the room. So I fought to be treated fairly and respected, but I also, because I had my own. It was interesting the way I was raised. I'm the youngest of 8 kids, and my mom taught us it was 7 females and 1 male. So we were a very rare type of family, but we were really taught growing up to not pay attention to what others thought or said, but to
Mm.
keep true to ourselves. And so even in these business meetings, I would listen and then I could insert really meaningful comments or information that could take us places. And because of that, I didn't have to say a lot. I just had to say a few things per meeting. And there's
Yeah.
now studies that show the people that talk the most in meetings are often don't have the best ideas and aren't the most intelligent ones in the room. So it's those people that speak at the right time.
Mm.
And, there's many people that are trying to get ahead by parroting those ideas, but
Yeah.
you don't let people steal your ideas, right? If you brought something up, make sure that you're heard. And, as females, that can be really hard still in a lot of companies. It's getting better.
Yeah.
It's a lot better now than it was when I started 40 years ago in software. But it's, you have to make your presence known,
Yeah.
and you can do that without saying a word.
So give me an example. Say I was going into a exec meeting. It's like my first one as a female leader. What would I do?
Um, so I would prepare as much as I could for the meeting.
Yeah.
I would know how the topic of the meeting aligned to the goals of the company for the year. So that already gives you a leg up on probably half the people sitting in the room, right? Because
Mhm.
you've thought about this in a slightly different way than everybody else in the room. You've thought about it from the topic and then our top initiatives or goals for the year. And then you want to listen for the right opportunity to inject your idea or your comment or a couple of ideas or comments.
Mhm.
And it can, and doing just that, you start to get people to notice that you're saying things that aren't just the same old thing that the company's heard before.
Mhm.
Right? It's a new way of thinking of things because you're tying things together. And in your answer, you're going to say, well, I'm looking at, our second initiative, which is to increase revenue by 20% or whatever. And this project can go to meet that need by, here's some recommendations or here's some
Yeah.
things that we could think about doing or experiment. Right. I'm
Mm.
really high. I think the companies that move the fastest realize they have goals they want to meet and they need to meet, but they
Yeah.
realize they don't know how to get there. And as the world is changing so much around us, there's often new opportunities to meet these goals in different ways that even 3 months ago we didn't know about. So constantly be looking at that type of thing and being able to bring up some of those ideas in meetings can
Yeah.
really get you noticed. And like I said, you just need to make one or two key
Yeah.
suggestions or comments or recommendations. You don't need to speak for a lot of the meeting.
Okay, I love that. I'm going to note that down and utilize it. So thank you. Another thing we touched upon when we spoke before, and I loved, was that you emphasized asking directly for what you want. Love this. So like whether that's respect, compensation, or even just like an opportunity you want. So I want to hear more from your side. Can you share a time when like negotiation changed, the trajectory of your career, or asking for what you
Yeah.
want changed it?
Well, and interestingly enough, negotiations can also change your personal life. So let me
Mm,
give you a little example
okay.
how I did that. So I started treating negotiation as a game, and I was able to do this because, I got an opportunity from a company that I really wasn't that interested in working for, but they were coming after me. And
Yeah.
so, I realized there's those statements of, you don't get what you don't ask for. So
Yeah.
this company wanted me. I interviewed with them. They really were coming after me and giving me, they really wanted me to join them. And like I said, I wasn't that interested in joining the company. I'd known people that worked there. The environment was great for them. It wasn't a fit for really what I wanted to do. I learned through the interview process things had slightly changed for them. So it could be something that I could like, but um, it still wasn't my number one company to work for.
Yeah.
But they through the process, I told them, I've got a job right now where I have flexible hours. You want me to come in the office? That's going to give me an hour commute each way each day, or a 45-minute commute.
Yeah.
Can you compensate me for that? So they came back and offered me like 47,000 more than I was making. And even then, I said I want to think about it, and it was a number that wasn't round. And so, I mean, my husband was so funny because he was like, "Just take the money." And I was like, can you make that round? Can we just bump it up another 3
Yeah.
grand?" And they did. They were like, "Of course we can." And then I went into, "Well, what else can I get?" Right? Okay, you're gonna give me 50,000 more than I was making. So
Yeah.
what else can I get? Can I get another week of vacation? Well, no, we don't do that, right? Or can I get benefits that are different? And they're like, "Well, we can fund some of your healthcare spending account." Oh, okay. Right. That's still money that's not out of my pocket. And so then I asked for other things, right? And there was things that they couldn't do. And so then I said, well, since you couldn't do all those things, can you give me a signing bonus? And I was able to negotiate like if this is 15, 20 years ago, and I was able to negotiate like a thirty to $40,000 signing bonus. And so it was like, oh, okay, I'll go join, right? But I kind of did it in a joke way because like I
Yeah.
said, I didn't really want to join. Having that knowledge and just that ability to ask and not care if they said no,
Mm,
um, really gave me freedom. So, but
yeah.
I learned from that. And then I learned in the future that you really don't get what you don't ask for. So, there's ways of being able to research what you're worth now. You can go into Chat GPT, and if it's a publicly traded company, you can ask it, what does this title at this company make? And
Mm,
if it's a high enough position, Chat GPT will pull up the full total compensation because it's all out there online. But
mm,
even there's apps, right? There's gosh, is it Blind or Glassdoor? Some of those have
yeah.
salaries included, right? For almost every role. So go do your research or ask GPT to do it for you and figure out salary ranges of what you'd want. But then other things. Also think about for negotiation, what do you want out of life?
Yeah.
Would having more different business hours to not
Yeah.
have to come in till after 9 because you want to drop your kids off at school, or
Mm,
you want to work out every morning, or you want an hour, you want to guarantee yourself 2 o'clock in the afternoon every day of the week to go work out.
yeah.
Whatever would make you happy.
Mm,
You want to get out of there by 4 every day, so you want to work 7 to 4, whatever it is, right? Ask for what's going to make you happy and see if they say yes. I mean, that can be even more important to you than having a bunch of extra money,
for sure.
so it's there's just that ability to go into any company and find out that you can ask for what you want. It's a little harder to do that when you're already working for the company, right?
Yeah.
There's a little less wiggle room, but you can still, once they get to know that you have a good if you have a good working relationship within the organization and you're
Mm.
trusted, then you can start to say, "Hey, can I come in at, can I come to the office at 10 tomorrow and
Yeah.
start my work from home at 8 so I don't have to deal with traffic?" And see what
Yeah.
they say.
Yeah.
Ask. It can't hurt. All they can say is no.
Yeah. I just love the fact that you said it needs to be a round number. I'm gonna start using that one.
I
Absolutely love it.
honestly, yeah, absolutely. It was my husband's like, "Oh my god, they're gonna tell okay, you've gone too far. That's not," and they never did. And so it's like, okay,
It.
all they could say is no. And half the things I asked for,
Yeah.
well, probably more than half, they did say no because I was
Yeah.
coming up with all sorts of things. I figured, why not? And then
Yeah.
when I didn't get it all, I asked for a signing bonus, and they had,
Right.
because that's all different. It's different funding buckets within the
Yeah.
organization. So
Correct.
they could have money in some place and not in another.
Yeah.
So ask.
Completely agree. And as someone who obviously works within recruitment and does negotiations for people, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we know, like, okay, this is the salary. I'm sorry. I know we can't get you any more, but let's try and negotiate on all of these things. And
Right.
like you say, come up with other options, sign on bonuses, or
Yeah.
yeah, the flexibility,
Stock.
especially in this day and age. You
Right.
know, people want flexibility more than ever because
Mhm.
obviously we went through a period of being fully remote.
Yep.
So that's sometimes more important than, an
Yeah.
extra 10 grand, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Or stock, right? You can ask for
Yeah.
stock. You can ask
Yeah.
for all sorts of things that are different buckets that things can come out of. So whatever you're interested in,
Just ask.
ask.
Just ask. But I think it helps with the fact that you didn't necessarily like you weren't desperate for the role. I think it
Right.
can be daunting if you're like, I really want this job. You don't want to mess
Yes.
it up.
But you can still ask for the number to be rounded up. You can still ask for small amounts. The worst they can say is like you just said as the other side that I'm negotiating with, "I'm sorry, this is the most we can give you with what you're coming in with.
Yeah.
But then can you get a raise in 6 months? If I prove
100%.
myself, can I get a raise in 6 months instead of having to wait a year?" Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
100%.
stuff that you realize, and it's one thing to do now, I to prepare yourself for this can be listening to within your own company or talking
Mm.
to HR friends that you know or recruiting friends that you know, make friends with recruiters and ask them, "What can I ask for? What can I ask for
Mhm.
as a current employee? What should I be asking for as a new employee?"
Yeah.
And ask your recruiter friends that aren't part of your organization, and then go see what you can do.
100%. Yeah, completely agree. And it can be daunting, but like you say, speak to people and that should hopefully help
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
navigate it. A little bit. Anyway, or try. Another thing that I really wanted to speak to you about, I feel like I just keep saying, "Oh, I love this," but this was something that got me thinking, and that's why I wanted to speak with you because you've made bold life choices, and I really wanted to speak to you about a life choice you've made that I don't think enough women openly speak about. I have a lot of friends that obviously I speak to that have made the same decision or are in the process of making the same decision. But this is around you decided early on not to have children, which is very much against expectations, I would say.
Yeah.
So, how did you find the courage to stand by those decisions? And what was kind of the thought process?
Yeah. I was kind of different in that in high school, I didn't think I wanted to get married or have kids
Mm.
because I wanted to pursue a career and I wanted to be able to pursue whatever the heck I wanted to. And I didn't want um my parents had a very traditional marriage and I saw that as very limiting and I didn't want that. So I thought that's what marriage was. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I don't think I really want that. Now, my mom's response, my mother had 8 kids, right? She loved children. And anytime I would tell her, I don't think I want kids, she'd say, yes, you do, and close the conversation. Right. And it wasn't until I was quite a bit older, through my 20s that she started listening to me and realizing maybe that was okay. And what really made me stand in that was I started thinking about, when all my friends were having kids, right, in the mid to late 20s, early 30s, a lot of my friends were having kids. And I stopped and thought about, am I going to really regret this if I don't do it?
Yeah.
And I realized I didn't want a child 24/7. I didn't have that desire to be somebody else's mom. And so it's not fair. I didn't feel it was fair to bring a child into the world that I didn't really want to spend time on.
Yeah.
I still wanted to do my career more than anything else. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be able to go all over. And I know you can do all that with kids. But the fact is, I didn't want to do that with kids. And so once I really realized that I didn't want that, it made it easier for me to find a spouse that didn't want that, right? That was a conversation we definitely had before we got married. Um, and then, because I wasn't going to change my mind, right? And so this was what I wanted. I have a ton of nieces and nephews. I have probably over 20 nieces and nephews between my husband's family and mine. And I love all of them. I am great. I was like the one that was second to their parents that could go pick them up at school and things like that. I loved that. I just never wanted a child 24/7. And
Yeah.
so if I didn't want it, it just wasn't fair to bring a child into the world that I wasn't going to want to parent.
Mm.
And so that kind of made my decision more easy.
Yeah.
And it helped me to have the power and to have enough um, confidence
Yeah.
to say, "No, I really don't want that."
Yeah. I love that. And yeah, I said it, we don't talk about that enough. I think, when we talk about obviously women in leadership, and I have this podcast, I've had so many amazing women on, and a lot of them
Yeah.
are mothers and they have kids, and that's fantastic. And I know that there's a lot of
Yes.
women out there that are trying to juggle being a leader or an executive and having kids. But there's
Mhm.
also a lot of women out there that haven't had kids or
Right.
are in the process of deciding whether they want to or not. And I think
Right.
we're actually at the lowest rate ever for women actually having kids now. I think it's, 1.6 children per woman, like at this
Right.
point, which is the lowest for, well, like ever in the whole entire, well, like
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So I think society is changing and the norms are changing. But again, it's not something that I think people necessarily stand behind and are proud of and say, "This is my decision and this is why I made it." And yeah,
Mhm.
it's a tricky one though. It's definitely a tricky one.
It is, and, for those women that have careers and they have kids,
Mm,
when they're with their kids, they generally want them, right? They
yeah.
want to be with their children, and so
Mm,
their children still get that feeling that my mother loves me, my mother cares about me, my parents
mm,
do, right? Because usually it's both parents at that point.
yeah.
And really, that's the difference, right? I didn't have that desire when I came home from a trip or when I
Yeah.
came home from my job to want to have a child there that I
Yeah.
could dote on for a while.
Yeah.
I didn't have that instinct in me, right? And that desire in me. So for those people that are doing it all and their kids are in daycare or their kids are in whatever, I don't think that's a problem, right? I think as long as when you're with your child, you want to be with your child,
Yeah.
it's a lot different, when you want that child and they
Yeah.
know they feel wanted. Even if you get frustrated with them or whatever, that's different than
Yeah.
just having a kid because somebody told you or you felt like you needed to, and you
Yeah.
never really wanted to have a child. I
Yeah.
don't, that's the part that where I think it gets really difficult. Because it's just not fair to the child.
Yeah, I agree. So if someone's, and I'm at that age now, right, where we're thinking about family, kids, sort of that jazz.
Yeah.
So let's say talk to me. What would you say to me now? I mean, I'm pretty much decided that, we want some babies at some point, but who knows when. But
Right.
if someone like me who is unsure, what would you say to me?
I would ask you if you have the desire to parent. Do you, and it's not just liking other people's kids. I like other people's kids generally. Some of them I don't, but for the most part, like I said, I love my nieces and nephews. I was the person that if both of their parents were out of town and the child fell ill, I was the one that left work and went and got them. You
Mm,
know, I was the one that could sign them out if their parents couldn't get there. I was
yeah,
the one that the schools knew to call as a backup.
yeah,
So I still had children in my life. So it wasn't like I never wanted to be around kids. I just didn't have that desire to have one of my own. But a
yeah,
lot of women do. Almost every woman that I know of, a lot of them, high percentage do.
yeah,
If you're going to be disappointed, like when you hit 42, if you or 40, if you're beyond being able to conceive, will you be disappointed? Will you feel like, "Oh, I really missed out on something?" That's when I think you need to really think about, do you want a child? Do you want a
yeah,
couple of kids? Do you want, and then how many do you want? And really plan that into your life. There's no right or wrong answer there. And there's so many things you can do these days that allow you to parent more
yeah,
easily. And, just all of the support. There's a lot of support systems in place, even with, other mothers and
yeah,
other people, dropping kids off at school and all of that. There's a lot of things that you can do within your own life to make that easier and to parent with friends that I think is really valuable today that, wasn't really available 20 years ago. But yeah, do you want a child? If you don't have any desire to have a child, that's then don't have them, you know?
yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point, and I think that's something for people to think about.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a personal decision.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, when you reflect on your journey, what personal transformation are you the proudest of?
I've had a lot of personal transformations in my life. I'm approaching retirement age. I'm not quite there yet, but my earliest memory, my first transformation that I made was kind of fascinating to me and one that stuck with me. My
Mm,
family, my dad got a job in a different city when I was 8. And prior to 8, I'd been a really sick kid. I was horribly shy. I was very introverted. Different foods and things would often make me sick, so I wouldn't even go to my best friend's birthday party
mm,
because I was just too shy and I too afraid of being ill. And so I had been, like I said, I'd been horribly ill at about the age of 5. They were able to medically have surgery and treat what I had. And so after that time, I was getting better. But at 8, when we moved, I realized nobody at the new place, in the new city, in the new school knew me, and I
mm,
could be anybody I wanted. So I was still an introvert. I was still shy, but I decided to be more friendly and to be more a little outgoing. And within my own realm of being an extreme introvert, I was able to do that and change who I was externally to the world. And that was
mm,
something that even my mom noticed and things that she and I had talked about many times in my life. So at that young age, I was able to change my mind and decided I wanted to be somebody different. In my career, I've had a lot of transformations. Most of the jobs that I've held were not on job boards, especially in the transformation realm before people paid for something called a transformation. I would go, once I kind of rein in the chaos at one company that I was working at, I'd go speak at conferences. And I would often have companies come up and say, "We need somebody like you." And so they'd create a role for me. And I would go move into that company in that role. And so I always kind of led my own path and transformed what I needed to of myself in that new role. And now that I left corporate America last fall,
mm,
and I'm transforming myself again. So in the last almost year, I've been really understanding what I want to do, how much of my career, a lot of my worth was tied to my title in my career. And
yeah,
now I'm forging into new waters and I don't really want to go do that again. I don't want to go just work for another company. And I want to help people over the next 5 to 10 years as we're going through this huge transformation to figure out how to transform themselves. And so I'm doing it for myself. And then I'm figuring out options, even ones that I don't want to take. I love learning. So I'm going out and figuring out all these new ways of making income. And I'm starting to write a book about it now, just to help other people learn from what I'm doing and my mistakes that I'm making during this time as I transform myself into something that makes me money, but not working for a company.
That took some guts at 6, and I say guts, also, like, self-awareness for you
Yeah,
to change or
yeah,
realize that you needed to change certain
yeah.
parts of yourself.
Yeah, and just, I kinda had the opportunity to transform because I kept moving into different roles and things in my career,
Yeah,
and then trying to figure out what made the best one of those when it wasn't something that a whole bunch of other people were doing.
yeah,
That was kinda fun, so I learned to have fun at it too, and so it's helped me to see what could that be, and I'm doing the same thing now in life of what are all the opportunities that are available with the new technology we have today? What could things that could be developed so that we can help people that do get displaced find new avenues of income that they maybe even enjoy more than they
yeah.
did before?
Oh, great. Well, I can't wait to watch your journey, and I will read your book, so let me know when it's
Thank
ready.
you.
I
Thank you.
love a good book, especially anything around self-help. Yeah, I'm all for that.
Well, maybe
Um
I can come back on.
Yeah, perfect. Well, do you know, we'll just do a book reading for 2 hours. Another question just on this, because obviously I mentioned the self-awareness piece, but I'm eager to see, like, what kinda, like, attribute or mindset shift do you think our listeners or anyone would need to create a life they truly wanted?
Fundamentally, right now, I feel like our psyches are under attack. I
Mhm.
feel like
Okay.
the push and pull of positive and negative in our world right now, everything we're fed online, almost everything. I mean, it's a lot of negative, right? We all know negative headlines get more clicks, and so that's what every news station has over rotated into. A lot
Mhm.
of different, things that you like over rotate into that. For example, I'm an animal advocate, right? So what do you get shown on social media once they find out you're an animal advocate? Every abused animal under the sun, regardless of country or anything else, you
Mm,
start seeing all of those stories online. Well,
mm,
that just really hurts your heart on
yeah,
and your head on a continuous basis.
mm,
So I'm protecting myself now. In the last year, I've done it a lot more where I'm hiding a lot on social media, and that really works pretty well with the
yeah,
algorithms. If you keep hiding a lot of their content where they keep showing you negative things, and even the stories that are deemed positive because somebody went and saved that animal from abuse and then healed it and it can live without its limb that right just the horrible things.
mhm,
You really gotta watch what you're feeding your brain, because I don't think the world is as negative as a lot of people are perceiving it as now. If you go outside in your own neighborhood, if you talk to your neighbors, if you do your own grocery shopping and go talk to the people in the grocery store that are checking you out and be pleasant to them, have a small conversation.
yeah,
Generally, people are really good and really nice. But
mm,
even when there's all sorts of good going on in the world, we're not hearing about any of that, right? There's a lot of people that I'm seeing. I volunteered at the Humane Society when I first left corporate America, and just the amount of people that'll show up to go clean cages and help right do laundry for these animals is amazing, and
mm,
it's really uplifting, and that's much more positive than reading all the animal abuse stories online. So really using social media and again controlling what you want to see, there's all sorts of positive things that are coming up
mhm,
now too. So if you like your podcasts, right? You don't focus on a bunch of negative stuff. You focus on how to help people see things more positively or learn from what other people are doing in a positive fashion. There's a lot of YouTube channels that are doing things that are very positive. There's a lot of people traveling around the world and learning about different cultures and things, and it's fascinating to watch all of that. You don't have to watch all the negative, you don't have to listen to all the negative, and when you turn that off for even a short amount of time and go out in the world and find good people, it
mhm,
changes your perception of our world. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with today. And we're having so much anxiety, so much depression, so many just negative emotions. And a lot of it comes to what we see on social media, everything that's being served to us. Because when we go start following positive things, social media serves us up all the negative side of whatever you're doing
mhm,
positive. So hide all that, right? Don't don't let that penetrate your own psyche, and protect your psyche, because it's not going to get better if negative headlines are the ones getting all the clicks. Start
Yeah.
clicking on everything positive you can find,
Yeah.
right? And again, watch for that positive. Make sure it's not some horror story first that has a positive ending. Find the positive ones that are just people who are out helping people, helping animals, helping whatever you're interested in, right? Helping clean up the world, helping make the world a better place, helping people be better people. There's a lot of those stories out there too. And so to me, that's the number one thing, because when we operate from fear, and
Mm.
so many people that I talked to today that are getting laid off or that have been laid off, the rest of the fear of everything that they're dealing with, and then the fear of not having a job, kind of just it escalates on top
Yeah.
of everything else, and makes the world seem like a terrible place. But there's a lot of nice people in the world. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people doing great things, and so go find them, right?
Yeah.
And go find them either online and in person, and start having more personal connections. The more the world's automated, the more we're going to need humanity and human connection. So see what you can do to find some of that for yourself, and really protect your own mental state.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree. And you can ask all of my friends and especially my mum because she knows I'm really bad at this, but I don't like negativity. Like I just don't like anything negative. So if I'm having a
Yeah,
conversation and someone's going really negative, don't get me wrong, I understand if someone's going through a tough time, but if you're talking about
absolutely.
something that I don't need, like it's not going to add value to either of us talking about it, I'm like, okay, can we not talk about this because we
Yes.
don't need to? And I don't watch the news.
Yes.
I probably should learn more, like, know what's going on in the world, and people send me stuff, but I don't watch the news because it just made me depressed.
I'm the same way. Actually, I look at business news. So I look at the stock market, and I have
Yeah,
some companies that I follow, not even necessarily for their stock, but
yeah,
just so I can see what they're doing in the world, because it's
mhm,
interesting to me. It's something that I enjoy.
yeah,
I like space travel, so I follow space companies, and things like
yeah,
that, so I can see what's happening in that. And it's often much more positive, right? And it's often much more
yeah,
neutral than doom and gloom and everything. So I
100%.
find news, right? I can keep up on things, but not. I agree with you. I don't watch mainstream media news at all anymore. And when things that I'm watching online or that I'm reading online start becoming horrifically negative,
Yeah,
um, I I turn them off. Funny, my dad was an editorial cartoonist, which means he drew political cartoons. And
yeah,
so our
wow,
household that I grew up in was excessively political before people made that the center of the existence, like a lot of
yeah,
people do today. And it's actually a huge trigger for me, because I had to grow up in hearing somebody rant and rave over politics every night.
mm,
I hate it. And so I won't deal with politics, as far as I know what I believe in and the world
mm,
that I want to help build. But other than that, so that I can vote on things that I'm interested in, but I won't watch the politics that go on, because talk about negative and divisive.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, I don't get involved. I stay out of that. Perfect. Well, this has been great. We do have a closing tradition, which I kind of feel you've answered with like every single one of your answers today. But I'm going to ask you just in case you have something else to add, which is what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
I wish I would have learned to stand up for myself or to ask for things earlier, because that one company that I didn't want to work for, that was about halfway through my career.
Yeah. Mm,
And so for 20 years, I left money on the table. I left all those benefits that I could have been getting. All the things that we talked about, different hours, different things. I left all that on the table, and
yeah.
instead I worked, 8 to 5 or whatever for companies, often more, because you were expected to work a lot of overtime. Just, that type of thing. Instead of knowing what I wanted, I often followed rules. So
Yeah.
knowing what you want earlier, and finding the places in the world that meet your needs,
Mm.
I think is something that I wish I had not waited till I was in my 40s to learn.
Yeah, to be honest, I wish we had this conversation earlier as well. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the
Absolutely.
time. And yeah, I mean, we'll chat again very soon.
Great. Thanks so much for talking, Sophie.